Take a moment to read the sign on the screen right now. I think the message on the sign is something that many of us can relate to. We're all fairly logical people, right? We all can go for a logical argument most of the time, right? But what many of us don't realize is that logic isn't the only thing playing into the messages that we're persuaded by. I'm sure you all remember high school, and right around the time that prom was coming up, you would see messages that were distributed by the administration, whether they were flyers or announcements. You know how the story goes. The one about the couple who won prom queen and king, but they chose to drink after prom and ended up getting into a tragic car accident and dying. The message here is, don't drink after prom. But what many of us don't realize is that persuasion is going on inside this message as well. Today I'm going to talk about persuasion and why it is such an important factor in our lives. Because persuasion influences so many things that we do and so many things that we value, it's important to understand these factors. Today I'm going to talk about the message factors in persuasion. There are 3. First are message factors. Next is message content. And lastly is the language that is used in persuasive messages. I hope that by covering these, you will all have a better idea of the persuasive messages in your life. So what is persuasion? Persuasion is the study of attitudes and how to change them. This is defined by Richard M. Perloff, author of Persuasion. Many people can think of persuasion as something negative, however. But what is important to realize is that it can be used in positive ways as well. We often see non-smoking ads that are trying to persuade people to not smoke anymore, and I think many of us can agree that this can be a positive argument or positive use of persuasion. Also, persuasion is often confused with coercion. However, persuasion and coercion are not the same thing. Coercion involves taking away a person's free choice, which is often seen as unethical. This is not what persuasion is about. Now, if you look at the screen, you'll see a model that was developed by William McGuire of Yale. This model shows how persuasion develops in 6 steps from the easiest to the hardest. First is the exposure, when the message is delivered to the audience. Next is the attention, how the audience pays attention to the message. Next is comprehension and understanding. Does the audience understand the message that is coming towards them, or is it something that goes above their heads, or maybe it's an inside joke that they don't understand? Next is acceptance, whether or not the audience chooses to accept the message or whether or not they choose to reject it. Next is retention, so whether or not the audience holds on to the message that was delivered in the persuasive message. And last is action. Now this is a key step in persuasion because the goal of persuasion is to get you to act, or not to act in some cases. This is the hardest level, but this is the level that many persuasive messages strive for. So why does persuasion matter to us? Nearly every aspect of our lives is affected by persuasion, as I mentioned before. From the music we listen to the brands that we prefer, to even the ideals and the values that we hold. These are all shaped by persuasion in some form. So, understanding persuasion can make us a little bit more informed in the decisions we make and help us be more self-aware. For the first factor of persuasion, I'm going to talk about message factors. Message factors refer to what is said in a message, how it is said, and how it influences people. Now there are 3 types of message factors. The first is the concerns of the message structure, next is the content of the communication, and lastly is the language of the communication. Message structure. Message structure concerns how a message is organized. The most important issue when thinking about message structure is whether or not a communicator will present both sides of something or whether or not they will present just one side. One-sided messages only present one perspective. On the other hand, two-sided messages offer a persuader's position as well as the opposition's. So which do you think is more persuasive? While many people may be inclined to say that one-sided messages are more persuasive, research finds that often two-sided messages are more persuasive. Are you confused as to how? Well, picture this. If a persuader is delivering their side of the message, sure, you get all of the information that they want you to hear. But if a persuader is presenting the other side of the message, the side they don't support, you're getting both sides of the story. But this also allows the persuader to do something unique. It allows them to refute what their opposition is saying. So, while the opposition may say that their product is great, by presenting both sides, this gives the persuader the opportunity to refute that statement and tell you why their product isn't great. Make sense? Moving on, we have message content. Message content is the content of a message, and there are several different types of message content that are considered persuasive when looking at persuasive messages. First is evidence. Evidence is often seen as the most important content that a message can have. If you think about some of the messages that you're often persuaded by, you may notice that you're often persuaded by those that include evidence. This includes factual assertions such as, our product is better because in a lab test we did this. Also, quantitative information. Testimonials, we've all seen those commercials with somebody who lost a ton of weight or somebody who benefited so greatly that it changed their life. Or opinions by credible sources and professionals. Again, if you see the proactive commercials, for example, you have doctors saying why this product works and why it's good for you. It makes you a little bit more inclined to pay attention to it. The next type of message content is the narrative persuasion. Narrative persuasion can be a fantastic tool at persuading audiences because it helps the audience or gives the audience a chance to feel emotionally involved in the story that's being told. As I referenced before, the story that many of us heard around prom time about the couple who died after choosing to drink after prom is an example of narrative persuasion. This allows the audience members to feel that those may have been their friends or their siblings who died in that car accident. It makes you feel close to the message, and oftentimes you may be more affected by the persuasion in that message. Fear appeals is something that all of us know. We've all experienced this type of persuasion at one time or another. However, while these types of fear appeals are popular in messages, they are often seen as a negative and unethical form of communication. The communicators who use fear appeals often think that if they can inflict a little bit of pain into their audience, they can gain a little bit in return. Fear appeals refer to a persuasive communication that tries to scare people into changing their attitudes, and this can often be seen in public service announcements. Again, as I mentioned with the prom story about drinking after prom, this can be used as a fear appeal. The school wants you not to drink after prom because you could end up in a car accident and potentially die. We also see this with non-smoking ads, not texting while driving, all of those types of ads. Guilt appeals are something that we've also probably all experienced, and we can think to the sad animal commercials with the sad music playing in the background and they ask for your money. Of course those commercials are really, really sad, but what the type of persuasion that is being used in these commercials are guilt appeals, which produce negative reactions in people with the hope that their guilt will make them change their behavior, or in many cases, donate to a certain cause. Moving on, we have language. Now, language is just as important, and sometimes even more important, than the content of a message. For instance, those who speak quickly or use powerful speech are often seen as more competent because they're seen as competent and knowledgeable about the topic on which they are speaking. So many people regard President Obama as a good speaker. Now, if you watch some of his speeches, you may see that he's speaking somewhat quickly and he's using powerful speech. He doesn't say or he doesn't say like a lot, and those are signs of powerful speech. Other signs of powerful speech include the absence of hesitation, the absence of hedges, tag questions, and disclaimers. Language intensity also helps the audience connect to and visualize the message. This includes metaphors, vivid language, and emotionally charged words. So now that I have gone through the message factors that make up persuasion, I hope that you all see that many of the aspects of your lives are influenced by persuasion, whether it's the commercials you're watching or even your friend trying to convince you to go to lunch. Persuasion is all around us. So next time you see the sad commercial or a PSA convincing you not to do something, just remember what's behind those messages.